obviously one of the important things in this film is the natural world, what's natural, what's unnatural, what's associated with nature. What do you guys, do you have any particular symbols or the way nature's used or anything that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I was just thinking of the little rhyming song that the twins Jonas and Mary sing about Black Phillip, and they go Black Phillip, crown sprouts out his head, and that's like almost a direct reference to a horned god.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. That literally his crown is his horns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then there's all that symbolism with the crown of thorns and
right. Mm-hmm. Right. They also talk about him as being king of skies. He is king of sand, sky, and land. I think there's another reference to him as being king. I don't think they do say even king of sky and land, which makes you wonder, like, is it this not just earthly realm, but is he aspiring, or is he part of something beyond, that would be more associated traditionally with God? And if you take a seditious reading of this movie, then definitely that could be the case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, I would say sky, like, because, like, in the old worldview, the sky was sort of this sphere thing that encompassed the rest of the ground, so, like,
had different regions sometimes, and the upper ones were heavenly, or the heavenly was above those skies.
So like this part, like in some old Protestant and like Christian readings, God basically gave Satan dominion over the earth as sort of a kingdom. And like the upper parts were for God and the rest of the angels to deal with.
Yeah, that was interesting. Another couple of things I noticed in the Black Phillip songs that Jonas and Mercy sing, they talk about him being like basically evicting a lion from the lion's den, right? And I wonder, like, is that maybe a reference to what Black Phillip will do to their father? Is the lion considered prideful there? Or is it just like a threat the way it was to Daniel? I don't remember the Daniel story real well.
What happened with the Daniel story was that, the lions were getting ready to come at him, and an angel stopped them.
Oh, I see. Yeah. But in this case, it's Black Phillip, who I guess is a fallen angel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
And like, I was sort of mulling over that scene where Will wakes up and sees like the dead goats and Thomason lying there half out of the barn and no twins in sight. Yeah. Thinking, what's he going to do to her? Is he going to hurt her?
Right. Yeah. Right.
And then,
or is he saving her by attacking her father?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's like, that's what I was thinking. Is Will going to hurt her? And then Black Phillip just comes up and shanks him.
Yeah. And in a sense, destroys his handiwork by destroying the barn and then knocking all the wood down. Or Black Phillip, maybe not directly, but all the wood falling down. Yeah. Another thing in the Black Phillip song, because we talked about how Thomason early in the movie is trying to make people laugh, and she's playing peekaboo with Sam, which is how Sam gets kidnapped, and they say Black Phillip rules the world with mirth, or something like that. Rules with mirth, and I thought that's very interesting because that's something we associate with Thomason early in the film. Yeah,
it's interesting that he rules mirth, he rules joy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And we don't know because again, supposedly the things of heaven are true, and the things of hell can deceive. So it's we can't be really sure what's mirthful, what's ecstasy and what's agony, what's joy and what's suffering.
Yeah. And honestly, it seems like joy isn't something that's allowed very much.
Oh yeah, I would agree. Yeah, it's frowned upon. I mean, it's part of idleness. It's that levity, that mirth. I would see them as reading that as part of idleness, right?
Yeah, and the fact that these types of emotions, that these types of emotions cannot be instantly looked at as just an emotion, as like something bigger, like even that the human mind can't comprehend, and maybe connecting those types of emotions to idleness is like is one of the things that we as humans, and for those that follow Puritan law, follow Christian Protestant religion, always assume that it could that it could lead to that specific sin, and maybe the rest of the 7 sins.
Well, that makes me think. What Dad is talking about to Caleb is doing like a. He's probably, I don't know if it's officially called a catechism, but he's going over his responses and stuff in the woods with Dad, and he's saying like, my nature is sin. I'm always sinful. I'm bent to sin continually, right? And those, if emotions are natural to humans, that sin is natural to humans. We're bent to sin continually, perhaps through our emotions.
That makes me think of like, how when Will is doing his praying and he's saying, God is something we should be fearful of, and we are not worthy, and blah blah blah, and then thinking about how like Caleb says that this figure that he's seeing is loving, is being gentle with him, is like cradling him as he's dying.
Right. And we don't know if it's an angel or a demon or a vision from the Witcher. Yeah, and when he talks about kiss me with the kisses of thy mouth, right? There's a little bit of an overlap between like this, like Kate was talking about being ravished by Christ, right? There's that. I'm not really sure if this is sexual or not, but it's very, very joyous or wonderful as sex might be. Yeah. One of the things that I thought was interesting in the film was that has to do with nature are trees. Obviously, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, right? So there's knowledge, and it's knowledge of whether or not something's good or bad, heaven or hell, damned or saved, that sort of thing. Whereas there's that, again, we have that constant theme of not knowing, right, and being potentially fooled. He mentioned something about the farm beginning, like they marked it off at a tree or something.
It was the tree that he and Thomason are sitting against after Caleb dies, and he's hugging her, and he says, remember when we came here, this tree was in bloom in spring, and we marked from here to over there, and there, we said there'd go the wheat field.
Yeah. So the tree is associated with agriculture, with domesticating the land, right? But also with sin, and that obviously the farm is founded on William's sin of pride.
Yeah, and with the tree still being there, I don't know if it's a different tree, but I observed this. With Caleb being being buried, that might be the same tree that Will and Thomason were at after Caleb's death.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yes, that's what I wondered. Because that idea, her getting into the grave and that being where they buried him, and this idea that the wages of sin is death, I thought that was a perfect metaphor for that tree.
With the tree itself, from just looking at it, I'm not sure if they grow that far north, but hazarding a guess from trees around here, it looks like a redbud.
Oh, interesting.
Which is also known as a Judas tree.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the redbud is
that supposedly where he hung himself?
Yeah, supposedly he hung himself from a redbud.
My God.
Interesting. I also noticed at the end of the film, I had mentioned in a previous section how Thomason is up on that tree. It's Christ-like, but it could be seen as a restoration of the tree of knowledge of good and evil as well, a reversal of what happened in Eden.
It also,
it's almost Lilith-like more than Eve-like in that sense.
It also made me think of Odin imagery with him gaining the knowledge after hanging himself off of the tree.
Yes. When Caleb was in the woods, got separated from Thomasin, like before he meets the witch in her cottage, he's going through all those roots and branches, and that kind of reminded me of Odin imagery as well. Yeah.
And I think the animals that are associated with the witches are interesting as well, like the hare, the raven, the toad, wolf.
Yeah, the rabbit. Wolf is several times, yes.
Yeah.
The animals that they named stuck out to me a lot because a lot of them were associated with goddesses.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, both the raven and the wolf, the Morrigan, rabbits. I can't remember who that is. I feel like it's one of the Greek goddesses. Probably Artemis.
Oh, yeah, could be.
Toad.
I was thinking Astarte or Ishtar might be with their egg associations as well.
Yeah,
I think possibly with rabbits.
Yeah, the weird little chicken thing in the egg.
I think to the Celts, rabbits are like fertility. I don't know if there's a specific god or goddess though.
Yeah. The toad, I think that's one of Hecate's.
Oh, okay. I was actually thinking about kind of this dichotomy of domesticated animals or animals they've attempted to domesticate versus wild animals. Like the wolf and witch association is made 3 or 4 times in the movie. Obviously, Black Phillip, they've attempted to tame him, but they haven't. Flora, they've attempted to tame her, but they can't really take good care of her, right? She's bleeding, and whether she's cursed or diseased or whatever. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I just remembered Caleb in his list of animals. He said a black dog.
Oh, okay. Interesting. What color was Fowler?
He was black, white, and tan.
Oh, interesting. Okay. But I also noticed with those different animals, he asks, "Would you like the taste of butter?" Right, that's a product of a domesticated animal, and it's associated with the devil, right? And that's interesting because they're pushing to domesticate the farm, right? And that shows that maybe that's a sinful or a prideful thing to do in that sense.
And when Will's talking with Thomasin, he says something about getting a big fat cow for the farm.
Yeah. I noticed not the very beginning because that's the scene where he's being banished. But after they leave, that first scene of them being out in the wilderness is they're out in the woods at night, right? Which again could be guilt by association. That could be setting up that everything is going to go bad for them, and it's also the domain of the witches. But I noticed that the first thing I think you see him doing with the farm is he's kissing the ground, but he's praising God. He's blessed. He's trying to ask God to bless the farm, but he's kissing the earth. Right, and that shows that there's a kind of a dichotomy between the divine and the natural world, but he's kind of breaking that, and then later on he's like, I lick the dust of thine earth. He's praying to God again, but he's licking the earth, he's licking the dirt. So it's like, it makes you wonder, is the natural world holy and protected by God, or is it evil and it's something that we should try to move away from? If you look in the Bible, everything culminates with all these natural disasters in the world. Depending on your point of view, some Christians believe that there'll be an apocalypse and then everything will be remade and there'll be another earth that will be kind of replenished somehow. And some people think that that's, we'll just get taken away and there won't be an earth anymore. But the Bible ends, with the culmination of the prophecy of the Bible. The return of Christ is associated with the destruction of the natural world in many different ways.
Yeah.
So he may be kind of at odds with God with what he's doing on the farm. I wanted to talk about the apple symbolism. I thought that was pretty interesting. I noticed that I believe the first time apples are brought up is when Caleb is lying and saying, we were looking for apples, right? I thought I saw an apple tree, but I guess not. So the apples begin in his imagination, and this is kind of a symbol that play or imagination are seen as bad things in their society, because that imaginary apple culminates in the apple that they pry out of his mouth that he vomits up later on.
I think it's interesting that it was stuck in his throat and they had to pry it out because Adam's apple.
Oh, yes! Oh.
Yes, Adam, when he swallows the fruit, it doesn't make it all the way down. It gets stuck in his throat.
That's correct, yeah. Oh, how interesting. Yeah.
So Caleb, it's stuck in his throat, and then they pry it out of him, or they pry open his mouth, and then he pukes it up.
Right. And I wonder if, in that sense, we could associate Caleb with Adam and Thomason with like an Eve, or a restored Eve, restored to knowledge or something.
Oh, that also makes me think of like the symbolism of all the blood on the apple. It's like the Adam's apple happens when like testosterone hits and it enlarges and deepens the larynx. Cutting out his voice.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because after he pukes up the apple, his voice is very high, but then when he comes back, his voice is raw and huskier.
Yeah.
So
I think him and his sister are both near to or experiencing puberty. I mean, obviously, so yeah.
Yeah, like it's not as deep as it would be if he had gone through, but it's definitely like hoarser.
I wonder if we could read them as Adam and Eve. I wonder if their incest is kind of like a mimicry of the divine incest of when there were only two people in the world, according to the story, that had to, have children.
Yeah.
Interesting. Right. Anything else about nature, natural world?
Meh.
There you go. That's a good ending for it.